Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is the Black Manga Critic here. Um, Welcome to Ramblings number one. So one thing I'm trying to do with just like the channel is just trying to make it more organized. So any videos that I don't feel like need to be on the channel, I'm just gonna get rid of. I'm just gonna get rid of them. So when it comes to the videos that I've had where I've done stuff like this, where I've talked about issues like that, that are important to me, or I wanted to just kind of talk about, then I would, have like the different titles on them and stuff. But I want to like put all those under one sort of banner kind of thing. So they're all just going to be titled ramblings. I'm going to get to work on that when I get the chance. Probably like in spurts, So for now, this is going to be the first one. But I wanted to talk about this because, and I've talked about this before, right? Like I've talked about this before. Like this is not the first time that I've discussed, female cast in battle shonen manga or female cast in general, right? In manga, period, or stories or whatever. But like I think people definitely need to talk about this more. That's not to say that it's not being talked about. I'm just saying, like, I think, especially like guys, like we should be talking about this more. Like we should sort of, make sure that it's clear that one, we care about this, that we care about this issue, that like, we want like change and that sort of thing. So when I'm talking about like female cast in battle shonen manga, we always kind of have to like sort of talk about the issues that sort of stem from that, right? So for me, like one of the first issues is the ways in which they're treated like terribly, right? Like, and when I say terribly, that's like the word I'm going to use. Some people might use a different word. They might want to sort of like cushion that. They might want to cushion that by using like not so well and words that don't have as much sort of like an impact or oomph or whatever. But I'm gonna say it straight up. That's how I feel about it. And especially when you're reading these battle shonen manga, like if you think about all the popular, in particular the popular battle shonen manga that have come out in like the last like 20 years, all right, this is something that you see constantly. The further you go back, the worse it gets, right? And that's just a sort of a symptom of sort of like the times of the ways in which this topic was discussed and how aware mangaka were about the ways in which they were treating their own their own female cast members. So like if we think about the sort of like let's say like Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, like it's just we can already see it. If we're reading Dragon Ball Z, we know that is terrible, right? Like also the women don't have a role that is, and I'm not gonna use the word like important so much as what's a good word for it? Like interesting in a way that is like a prominent role. That's a good word for it, right? Because I think there's a difference between sort of like prominent and kind of like important, like in a sense. If you kind of get my drift, like when Bulma has an important role, right? Like she builds machines, she's a genius inventor, and if it wasn't for her, there'd be a lot of the time they wouldn't be able to get to where they need to get to, or they wouldn't be able to figure out, how to deal with particular situations and that sort of thing, right? In that sense. But prominent, like I don't know how many folks are like out here talking about, Bulma is this incredible character that's even more sort of incredible than like a Goku or Vegeta, or in the same realm. That's not to say that she isn't. It's just like the conversations around I would say the conversations around Bulma are very different than the conversations around a Goku or a Vegeta, or the villains or Frieza or Cell or those sorts of characters, right? Again, not saying that like Bulma isn't an important character. It's just in terms of like being a prominent character, there's a very big difference. And if you look at the sort of through line of terms of like the sort of the plot and the story as we've sort of gone through the Dragon Ball franchise, her role has like significantly diminished, right? As she's at like once she had Trunks, man, you know what I mean? Yeah, like it's like stuff like that. That's just it's just abhorrent. Like it's an abhorrent like thing to see, and like right, like and that sort of leads into conversations about the ways in which mothers are punished just for being mothers, that sort of thing. All right, not just in fictional narratives, but in this reality. So it's just like that's just like that's just one particular example with like Dragon Ball. And if we think about all the other women within the Dragon Ball franchise, most of them are not particularly prominent, right? Like if at all, in the ways that Krillin, Tien, Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, Frieza, Cell, Majin Buu, like Master Roshi, like it's like the list goes on and on with those stories, right? And it's easy to sort of make to off the top of my head just list those characters off, no problem when it comes to those stories. When it comes to women, it becomes significantly harder to do that with these stories, right? Like it becomes significantly harder. Now there will be some dudes out there that'll be like, no, I got you. I can name some. And what they will do is they will list these characters that in no way are nearly as popular or prominent in the stories that they're talking about. I remember in the past I did a similar sort of stream, right? And I'm gonna list another popular battle shonen manga, right? Bleach. And folks are coming to me talking about, oh, I can list like, they were listing characters, listing characters. And when some of the characters they listed, I was like, are you sure those are the characters you want to list? Right? If we talk about Bleach, we could think about like some of the characters they talked about were Rukia, Orihime, Yororichi, right? And it's like, and the thing about these characters, isn't so much that they're not they're not important to the story. This is more sort of a conversation about like their prominent, how much impact they sort of have, like in terms of the narrative. Like, are they the ones who save the day? That sort of thing, right? Like that's kind of sort of what I'm thinking about. So when I think about Rook and what sort of role they're regulated to, right? This is a thing. So when we like, so it's easy to like list like a bunch of like characters that are sort of like coded as like male characters, and or I guess we could say are male characters, right? Like we can list off a bunch of them: Ichigo, Uryu, Grimjow, Nitora, Kenpachi, Byukoi. Like the list goes on and 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 on. Right? It's not a difficult thing to do with Bleach when it comes to like the dudes. When it comes to the female cast, it becomes more difficult to sort of like to argue for those characters as having a prominent role in the same way that an Ichigo, as a Uryu, as a Kenpachi, as a Byakuya, as a Yamamoto, Genru Yusai, you know what I mean, as a Aizen, as a Juhabak. Like it becomes much more difficult to do that with the female cast, and that's sort of the crux of the issue, right? Like if you think about Rukia basically was like that's not to say that Rukia has no autonomy at all or anything like that. But if we look at the role in which Kubo placed her in, it was like, you hold the Hogokyu. The whole reason why you're particularly important, right? The whole reason why you're particularly important in the entirety of the story, the whole is because Aizen was looking for the Hogokyu and it was inside of you, and like he set this whole thing up so that folks would be invested in you, when in reality they just needed he just needed the Hogokyu. Like that's the sort of thing that bugs me. Like it bugs me. It's like, really? Like y'all couldn't just have like Rukia be a legitimate, like interesting character and not be the person who was holding the Hogokyu. I understand that that's like an interesting sort of like narrative sort of flip in a sense. But it's like right after that, y'all folks are just Rukia is just around, shooting ice beams, but is not really doing anything that is like particularly prominent or important, right? When it comes to the Rancor that she has to face, right? One of the Espada that she faces basically like the weakest Espada, right? Like it's like stuff like that is like not it's not good. It's not a good look. It's not a good look to give a character like Rukia that people really like. Like people really like Rukia, but to give her like the ninth Espada, right? Who is essentially like the weakest Espada, right? We initially are supposed to believe that Yami is the weakest Espada, but in actuality he is the strongest Espada. Some people might think that he's like both the weakest and the strongest, but no, he's a strong. He's supposed to be the strongest Espada. He's the Cero Espada. Like, come on, stop it. All right. So it's stuff like that that is particularly interesting. And as the story goes on, her role becomes less pronounced. This is something that you see constantly in Battle Shonen manga. The roles of the female cast become like less pronounced as the story goes on. Right? As the story goes on, less pronounced. Okay? Same right happened with Rukia. Orihime. All right? Folks are really trying to present Orihime as like an example of a character that had like this incredible like prominent role, and it's just like this amazing character and da da da. I'm like, were we serious? Like, do we really believe for a second that Orihime was not placed as a love interest like for the majority of the story, and that she had this ability that was supposed to be interesting and cool, but then it didn't go anywhere, right? Like we were supposed to believe that Aizen was invested in this ability to like reject reality in a sense, and to sort of and to be able to sort of like change like that reality based on this sort of concept of rejection, and it was supposed to be this really cool thing, and then that didn't go anywhere. You know what I mean? It's like very quickly she just became someone that was watching battles. So this is the thing that I think is really key to sort of note. It's not just that women don't often have the prominent roles, but it's that women often like their roles, however significant they were at one particular point, will slowly but surely become less pronounced as the story progresses. And that's something that like it's like that's on manga, right? That's not on like the character themselves, right? And that's right. And those are just two examples: Dragon Ball, Bleach, right? Those are just two examples, right? The next one we have to talk about. We got to talk about Naruto. All right, we got to talk about and Yororoshi. Right, even her like her role became less pronounced as the story went on. Like Kubo had it in him to say, you know what's gonna be the best ability for Yororoshi? I'm gonna like take out all of like what makes Yororoshi like amazing in terms of her intelligence and her and just like her like the rawness, the swag, all that stuff, and I'm gonna turn her into this cat lady, with this great what's it called, sort of like her ability to use Ryatsu, and like her at her strongest is when she's not thinking much. Do you know what I mean? Like when she's in this like clearly like revealing like cat costume, sort of like cat lady costume sort of thing. It was just like that to me was like one of the like corniest things that I'd ever seen. You know, right? Like some folks would be like, yo, she's so strong, but it's like really, and the only person that can like sort of get to her and like and that she's like attached to is like this dude. Like I just like I get that there's more to it that that like Urahara and Yororoshi had like a close relationship and blah 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 blah. But it's like really, you know what I mean? It's just stuff like that bothers me. It's like there's no reason in any story to put someone as amazing as Yororoshi in a cat Ryatsu costume and like lower her ability to like think and process and do certain things, and I have her just be like this like cute cat lady. Like what are we doing? Like stuff like that is ridiculous, right? And again, we see this constantly through these battle shonen manga, right? It was just ridiculous. It was ridiculous, right? So that's sort of the thing that I think like when we see stuff like that, we got to be like, come on, yo, Kubo, what are you doing? All right, when we see stuff like stuff that we saw in Dragon Ball with Bulma and how her role was progress, like just like as the story went on, just reduced. That role was reduced, right? Less prominent, like significantly less prominent as the story went on. We got to be like, come on, like right, y'all know the boost, y'all know the Boosie GIF meme, whatever you want to call it, right? He's like, come on, dog, come on now, dog. Like, what are we doing? Come on, what are we doing? So I think like we always have to question those things, and we always have to like call those things out when we see it. We gotta do that constantly. Why? Because a lot of folks, too many folks don't. That's not right. I'm not saying that there aren't dudes that don't do that. I know quite a few guys who like are like, yo, I don't know what Kishimoto was doing over here, but it was trash. Right? Same folks, right? And those same folks are like, I don't know what Kubo was doing over here, but that was doodoo. Right? And same thing with Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super. So I think, like, again, it's not to say that guys aren't saying that at all. It's that we just need to be a lot louder and better about it, I think. So the next run, of course, we gotta talk about Naruto. Because that might be, I wouldn't say it's the worst, but it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. And not to say it's the worst, but it's like, because Naruto is such a popular entity, such a popular show, right? It becomes even sort of more egregious that that's like done as the story is going on. Like, again, you know your story is particularly popular. You know that there is a demographic that the demographic that reads like your story consists of a particular population. Like, come on, son. It behooves you to treat the entirety of your cast, right? It behooves you to treat the entirety of your cast as important, as necessary, as, you know, as dope, right? At least the ones who were like, you know, supposed to be like the good guys or whatever, and villains too and stuff like that, right? Like, but it behooves you to give them good role, like interesting roles, prominent roles when they're supposed to have them. So when we look at Naruto and we think about Sakura, like, and let me say this. I don't mind Sakura. I think like when I first started watching Naruto, I want to say I was like 14, 15 at the time. Like when I just got into Naruto, maybe a little bit older, maybe like 16 or something like that. Because I had watched other stuff before I got into Naruto. Like I had watched other anime and read other like manga before I got into Naruto. So like when I got into Naruto, I was like, yo, Sakura's kind of like I liked where it was going in terms of like sort of saying like, okay, initially like, you know, she was worried about some particular things, which is fine, right? Like she's a child, she gets to have a crush, she gets to be like, oh, I really like this boy, but like I don't know how to deal with this, and then, like she gets to do that. She's a child. It is what it is. All right. I had no real issues with that, but I will say it's right. The issue came when it was like legitimately affecting how she was treating other people. And then she recognized that in herself and was like, oh, like I'm treating Naruto like garbage. I need to be way better. Right. And like to acknowledge those things, to acknowledge those pitfalls, and to try to be a better person because of those pitfalls. And Sakura had a really great sort of like progression in a lot of ways, right? When she was fighting Sasori with Lady Chiyo, like, whoo, that fight was clean. That was one of the cleanest fights in Naruto. It's one of my favorite fights out of Naruto. I've watched it quite a few times because it's just cool. It's just really interesting. It's just very intricate. And after that, it's rough. It just continues to get rough. And the thing is, right, like, if you're a fan of Sakura, like, I think you acknowledge that, like, yo, Kishimoto treated her like dirt. All right? Tamari, all right? Karin, is that her name? From Naruto, right? The redhead, I want to say. Right? The one who had a support role. All right? Right? Same thing with Sakura. Same thing with even like Tamari to an extent. So it's just like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? What are we doing? Karin from Bleach. Oof. Let me not get into that. But You know what I mean? It's just like we got to think about these things. If we're looking at Naruto, it's a mess. It's a mess, right? The jokes always fly about these characters. When we joke about Naruto, oftentimes folks are joking about the female cast because the way in which the female cast is treated is not great at all, right? Sakura, her role becomes significantly less prominent as the story goes on because we're so invested in Naruto and Sasuke, which we understand that we're invested in those two because they're the protagonists, right? We get that to a degree, right? What can't happen is this like hyper focus on the protagonist, right? That's one of the things that I think Hunter x Hunter did really well after a certain point, right? Where I think Togashi sort of realized like, yo, like I think maybe I've been spending a little bit too much time with Gon and Killua, so I need to like get him out of here, right? So that's what he did. He said, all right, y'all not gonna be in the story like that right now. No. Okay. So right now in Hunter x Hunter, we don't have anything. Like we haven't heard a peep from Gon. Haven't really heard much from Killua outside of him sort of like, suggesting Bisky as someone that would be very useful for as a hunter for Kurapika for what he's trying to do, right? In terms of the Dark Continent stuff and the expedition stuff. So like outside of that, we haven't heard a peep from those two. All right, and that's fine. That's fine because everything else that's going on is interesting. We're invested. But I think like when it comes to Naruto, it's too much. It's like too much. Like we're way too focused on what's going on with Naruto, and we're way too focused on what's going on with Sasuke. Like in a story that has such a diverse cast. When if your story doesn't have too many characters and it does have a protagonist, then it kind of makes sense that you're like, yeah, you get to sort of focus on the protagonist and their interactions with those other characters. But what happens too often is like Naruto is constantly interacting with other dudes, right? In Naruto, Sasuke is constantly interacting with other dudes. So the focus for Naruto is just homosocial relationships, which can be interesting if you're also focused on on female relationships, right? Like if you're interested in that, right? Like, but if you're just focused on the dudes, then it just becomes a sausage fest that's really sort of annoying and it's just too much. And then the girls and the women who are in the cast get sort of like shafted, and they just over here, chilling, waiting for the guys to acknowledge that they exist, right? So it's just a mess. So to me, like Kishimoto just disgusting, right? The way he regulated Sakura to this just like sad like support role. She was just healing folks. That's all she was doing. Like she was just, all right, I'm gonna heal folks. And then it's almost as if Kishimoto realized that what he was doing was a problem, right? Like it's almost as if Kishimoto realized what he was doing was a problem, and then he was like, all right, I'm gonna give y'all Sakura punch to Kaguya's head. I'm gonna give y'all that. This is what I'm gonna give you. I'm gonna make it seem like Sakura is like super important and prominent in this battle against Kaguya, which is like not true, right? It's like, yes, like there's a way in which he's like, right, in which her role as a character is crucial to sort of like how the fight progresses. That's like clear. We understand that. We already understand that, right? It's like, yes, things happen. Things that happen to Sakura is crucial to how the story moves, right? Like in terms of that battle. But we gotta recognize that like a punch to the forehead ain't much. All right. Sakura constantly watching what's going on during that battle ain't much. So like we just got to be really clear about that. We got to be very, 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 very clear about that. All right. And Kaguya herself is a terrible character. Terrible. Okay. To introduce that character so late in the game and for her to not be there for very long and to not have any real and to be fooled by like nonsense things like like the jutsu. It's just ridiculous. Like it. No, no. I just can't. I just can't. But I think again, Sakura got regulated to like healing person, right? She got regulated to the cleric, like the cleric, the cleric role that nobody wants when you play in D&D, right? It's not to say that people don't like to play a cleric role, but most folks that I know don't really like to be to have cleric as their main role. That's why anytime folks are asking you to do a D&D thing, they're like, okay, well, we have cleric available, because folks don't want to play the cleric. Okay, they don't. All right, that's not, like, it is what it is. So whenever you put a female character in like a sort of healing role, that's not to say that it can't be well done, right? Healing is important, right? And we can talk about healing in so many different ways, from physical to psychological, right? Emotional, all those different ways. But Naruto doesn't do that. Like, Naruto doesn't do that. Like, that's not what Sakura is doing. Okay. Now, again, Kishimoto was doing our job and sort of saying like, hey, like Sakura was that woman. Like Sakura was that person who was healing Kankuro, who did a dope job at it. Folks, the medical corps of the Sand village were like, she's really good, right? But after a bit, I was just like, ugh, just a mess. All right. Now, right, again, it's not to say that the cleric role is not a good role. It's just that like most folks, at least from what I noticed, don't want to be the cleric. I've noticed it. Every time folks have been like, hey, what's going on, man? Yo, BMC, like, they don't call me BMC like in my actual life, right? But they're like, yo, BMC, like, we have a cleric role available. I'll take it because I'm just trying to play. But there's a reason why it's always available. Okay? And it's not to say it's a bad role. You can do a great job with that role. You can make it interesting, liven it up, do all that stuff. It can be fun. But it has a stigma. It's got a stigma. Okay. So, when it comes to right, Naruto, look at all the women, like, right, if you could list, like, you can list 5 characters, you could list 5 female characters, and all those characters are, like, all their role is steadily, like, their prominence is steadily lowered, right? They lose that prominence, like, steadily through the narrative. I could list 5 right now. Sakura, Tsunade, Tenten, Hinata, Temari. And all of those characters' roles are become steadily less prominent. All those characters' roles become steadily less prominent, right? Even Tsunade, 5th Hokage. Right? Come on. You know what I mean? It's like after that, right, her story is great and it's interesting and it's cool. All right. I like Tsunade. As a character. All right. Anko. You talking about Anko, right? Orochimaru's student. Another one, right? It's like, oh, it was so interesting. She had the curse mark, but she wasn't compatible, and it was interesting, and she's just trying to keep it bae. And you were like, what's gonna happen with her like story and everything like that? What's gonna be her relationship with Orochimaru? And then it doesn't go anywhere, right? And it's just like, oh, it's such a mess. Like, to take Tsunade, to take the 5th Hokage, to take a character that is one of the most prominent, that has like probably the most prominent role of the story, the Hokage, right? And then to regulate her to just like, again, like just healing folks, right? To get her just curb stomped by Uchiha Madara. And it's just on the side, like, and right, her role is so less prominent that she's basically watching her grandfather, who was already dead, fight in the battle. He was dead. He was dead. He was dead. And she was alive, and it was just like, all right, we have the reanimation juices, so we're gonna bring back all these characters, so many dudes. We're gonna bring back all these dudes, right? And we're gonna make them prominent again. We're gonna bring out all these characters whose story arcs were finished. They were finished. They were done. Leave them alone. And we're gonna bring back all these dudes. Come on, come again. Again, Boosie. Come on now. Come on now, dog. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? All right. But to take Tsunade, the fifth Hokage, and to put her in that like absurd role during the Ninja War. I can't. You know what I mean? And that like Tsunade is related to Hashirama for whatever, okay, that's fine. Right? But that never really becomes particularly important. Her relation to Hashirama. I mean, all that really does. Like for that, like what we see there is like, and this is like a totally different conversation about what it means to be important in that story in Naruto. What does it mean to be important in Naruto? Right? Like what does it mean to like to get to this like place like the Hokage or the Kazekage or whatever? You got to be related to some folks. This is what we see pretty consistently. All right, you got to be related to some. If you're not related to a previous Kage, or you're not related to some like amazing figure in ninja history, you probably not gonna become Hokage. That ain't gonna happen. I'm sorry. Neji was really speaking facts. All right, you're not gonna become like that, the leader. It's not gonna happen. All right. Sorry. Okay. So it's just yeah. But I think that again, when we talk about these stories, these are just 3 of the stories. We can go to story after story after story after story. Battle shonen manga after battle shonen manga after battle shonen manga. And we constantly see this. We consistently see this. We can go to Reborn, Hitman Reborn. I mean, that was just atrocious. What Reborn did with Akira Amano did with the what she did with her female cast, atrocious. Giovanni. Nepotism, right? Nepotism is king in Naruto. King. All right. So it's just like, it's a mess. Like Reborn, all the prominent 7 Deadly Sins. You know what I mean? Again, like, we just see this consistently, right? And it's like, I liked watching Hitman Reborn when I watched it, but because there was some cool stuff. Like Reborn was cool. I liked Reborn. He was dope. He had just so much. He amazing. Just very, very cool. Yeah. Yes, it was, Giovanni. Yep. Kita Amano. And a mess. A whole mess. Right? Yo, facts. There was a whole facts beyond silence, right? There was a whole scene in the future arc. They didn't do anything in the future arc. They were just there, right? And we were just like, why? Right? What are their roles? Like, their roles are just like, we can help out too. We can make sure that your stomachs are full and that you're healthy. Oh my God. Come on, son. Come on, man. Is this what we're doing? Is really? Come on. So stuff like that is just awful. Okay? And it's just and it's not. And the thing that we have to realize is that all of those manga have come out very recently. Like pretty recently, right? Pretty recently. During the 2000s. Okay? Outside of like Naruto, I think Naruto was 99. And Hunter was 98. I'm not sure. I gotta look into that. And then One Piece was like 97. Um, but it's like, come on, man. It's too much. It's like y'all are wilding out here. Too many of y'all manga are doing too much. To write a line like that in your manga and to think that's okay? No. So that's the sort of thing that I'm talking about. It's like, no, we can't sort of allow that to kind of continue. And again, I could go on and on and on. One Piece, you already heard me talk. I talk about One Piece all the time and how One Piece is like a mess at the moment, and I don't think it's gonna get any better. I really don't. I truly. I mean, and there are folks who think that One Piece is fine at the moment. I don't know what y'all talking about. I don't know what y'all talking about. It's a mess. It's a mess. All right, especially when it comes to how Oda, again, falls into the same pitfall that I'm sort of talking about. You will have the initial part of the story, the beginning of the story is dope, it's cool, interesting. These women are great. We're very invested in Nami. We're very invested in Robin. We're very invested in, some of these other women. Dr. Kureha, Bellemere, right? Like all these certain characters, right? The prominence of Big Mom, of Charlotte Linlin as a Yonko, like we're invested, right? Lola is interesting to me. I like the relationship between Nami and Lola and Thriller Bark. Like that stuff is interesting to me. And slowly but surely, the women are not particularly prominent in the ways that they should be. They're not. All right. If you look at, I don't care what part of the New World you look at. I don't care what part you choose. If you look at if you look at the female cast of each part of the New World, I'm talking about post time skip. I have constantly said I'm a fan of pre-time skip content. I'm a fan of it. That's not to say that these critiques don't apply to pre-time skip, but I think even more so, I think when we get to sort of like the end of pre-time skip, we begin to see what's going on here, right? We get a glimpse of what's going to happen within the post-time skip stuff. We get to see that. Did y'all see? Yeah, come on. Yeah, some of y'all, Big Mom, look at her Big Mom. She was so great. She did all this stuff. I'm like, come on. She's been treated like doo-doo, right? It's not a coincidence that Big Mom is the one Yonko that Big News Morgans puts in his paper and is like, she got beat, y'all. She got embarrassed, y'all. Folks went to her home, embarrassed her. It's not a coincidence that Big Mom is the Yonko that Oda chooses to embarrass, right? In that way, in such a prominent way, right? And folks that keep telling me, well, Shanks was embarrassed. He got his arm chopped off. Well, didn't we learn recently that didn't y'all learn recently that Shanks' arm was cut off before he became a Yonko? So I don't know what y'all talk about there. And even then, it would have been like ridiculous because Shanks is one of the most beloved characters of One Piece. The fact that he has one arm, to most folks, makes him even more badass. So I don't know what y'all are talking about with that. I don't understand that like weird logic that you're trying to run with there. When it comes to Kaido, come on, like when has Kaido ever been like really embarrassed that we've seen throughout the story, in the plot, and all those things? I haven't seen it. Folks who come to me talking about, oh, he was captured this many times and he was caught this many times and he was slated for execution this many times. But don't y'all realize that all of that stuff is just used by Oda to hype Kaido up, to say that he's so incredibly powerful that it didn't matter that he was caught or put to be executed or anything like that. He's still here, alive and kicking and chilling and drinking. So I don't know why people keep bringing up stuff like that, and when to me it doesn't make much sense, Because all that Oda's trying to do with those things is to make these characters even more prominent, even more badass. You know what I mean? But it's like, you know, same thing with a Whitebeard. Whitebeard went out like a G. Right? Whitebeard went out like a G. Had no scar on his back. All right, again, all this like, you know, very like machismo, you know, badass like stuff that's going on there. That's what's going on with that. Come on. Whitebeard ain't get embarrassed. Right? Whitebeard was literally like, it was literally his crew versus like the entirety of the world government. Right? And their strongest powers. It was just him. And then and a few folks that Luffy brought over. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't embarrassed. It was him. Folks realized that his faction, like his crew, was so powerful that the world government needed to bring everybody. Said, "Yo, everybody come through. Everybody come through. Everybody come through." You know what I mean? It's like when you see. It's like when you see. It's like when you see. Like for me, like in my neighborhood, right? Like I would come out of school, and you know I hear something happen, like maybe some blood's like, yo, you doing too much or whatever, right? Maybe Blood and Crip will get into it or whatever, and you know, and then they would like set up like a fight to happen on like some back street or whatever by the school, and then they start fighting, but the minute one of them was like losing a bit, right? The minute one of them was losing a bit, whole bunch of either Bloods, Crips, whatever, whole bunch of them come through and be like, hey, and start fighting the other dude, jump the other dude. I'm like, this is basically what we sort of see with like the Whitebeard pirates versus like the world government, really, right? The world government is like, yo, we can't just use the admirals. That's not gonna cut it. We gotta have the Shichibukai come through too, because if we don't do that, we're gonna be screwed. So this is the thing that's sort of funny to me, right? It's like when people are like, "Oh, Whitebeard got embarrassed too." No, he didn't. How? Blackbeard isn't embarrassing. Again, folks love Blackbeard. They love him because he's such a troll. That's his role. Like his role is just to be like absurd and ridiculous and just like scumbaggy. All right. And I think Blackbeard is very aware of this. He's very aware of how he's perceived and of those sorts of things. So that's why, to me, when people keep bringing up these like corny examples of how the other Yonko are also embarrassed in the same way that Big Mom is embarrassed, and I'm like, nope. Not one of these Yonko was put in the newspaper on blast by Big News Morgans as a Yonko that failed to beat some rookie dude. I haven't seen that. That didn't happen to Shanks. That didn't happen to Kaido. That didn't happen to Whitebeard. That didn't happen to Blackbeard. I haven't seen that. So don't stop. Enough. All right. And again, when we look at the end, like the post time skip stuff, all these, like if you mention a female character, I guarantee you their prominence has been decreased. Post time skip, maybe even before the post time skip, but definitely post time skip, right? Boa, what's Boa been doing? What has Boa Hancock been doing post time skip? Give me them feats. What are those feats? List them, right? If you pick, like, give me 4 of them, and that's sort of the thing, right? And like it's like, and Boa's a Shichibukai. Why isn't her role more prominent? All right. Look at so many of the women post time skip. Baby 5, Rebecca, the Tintata Princess, Viola, whatever you want to pronounce it. Viola, right? Suru. What is Suru doing? Right? What are her feats? She's supposed to be this cool character. And it's not that I don't like her character, but it's like, what are her feats? What has she been doing? Who has she fought? Right? I haven't seen her do one thing since One Piece started. We are 950 something chapters, 960 something chapters, right? Like if I'm correct, 960 something chapters in, and Sudo hasn't done a single thing. Oh, the blasphemy of that. And she's supposed to be chilling with Garbage and Goku and all these folks. She ain't done nothing but chase Doflamingo. Come on, man. We this ain't it. That's not it. Okay. All right. I thought folks are supposed to treat their elders with respect. There ain't no respect here. Ain't no respect here for Sudo at all. At all. Okay. So again, I could just list them off. All these characters post time skip. That ain't done. They don't do much. Tashigi, another just like disgraceful drop. Disgraceful. Okay? And we just consistently see this throughout One Piece, throughout the post time skip. But folks will keep coming to me with these just weak examples of how these women are prominent post time skip, and usually it's not something that they've done post time skip. It's not something like plot wise, in terms of like like what they've done. It's usually something that's like whack. You know, this is the thing that this is what bugs me. I'm just like, I gotta see more. I gotta see way more. And I guarantee you, if I read the chapters that I haven't read, like for the Wano stuff, I guarantee you it'd just be the same old stuff. I guarantee you Oda has not improved, right? That he's still treating the woman like garbage, all right? I'm 100% sure. I'm 100% sure if I read those chapters, that's what I would see. I would see that. I would see Robin somewhere in the dirt, Nami somewhere in the dirt, all right? All these other female cast characters in the dirt, all right, just waiting for some dude to make them relevant. You know, that's the kind of stuff, right? And like, again, like, come on. And again, I talk about One Piece all the time. I've said this time after time after time after time. This is not, it's not good. It's not a good thing, all right? And it's really significant. And I think the thing that really bugs me, it's like, it's not even just like dudes that will defend that garbage, but it's like women will also defend the garbage. And I'm like, wow. And for me, it's like, that's wild to me. You know? I understand that. Okay? So One Piece is just another one. My Hero, my hero's got some work to do. Horikoshi's got some work to do. All right, Horikoshi has some work to do. All right, when it comes to My Hero, I don't know. Like latest chapter, he had a opening panel where Ochako, Froppy, and Nejire were working with their hero, right, to get better and stronger and all that stuff. And I'm like, but we gotta see the stuff. Like, we need to see the stuff. Where's the, like, what are they doing? How are they progressing? Horikoshi, it's not enough to just give us like a little panel. I want to see that. If I don't see that, if I don't see any of that, if I don't see Ochako, Momo, Suyu, Mina, all right, I can't remember. I can't be bothered to remember the invisible girl's name. I can't even be bothered because she don't do nothing. All right, like, this is not good. Like, that's not good. So that's why when people are like, "Oh, but the female cast is so great," huh? In comparison to the male cast, is that really what y'all talking about? Nah, stop it. Please, do not insult my intelligence with that. Come on. Like, I like My Hero. Like I love reading My Hero, right? It's something that I enjoy, but that part of it makes me enjoy it less, right? Like, I don't enjoy it nearly as much as I could, because look at what Horikoshi's doing with these girls, and the women. It's just, he just got to step it up. And the thing with that is like, people keep telling, oh, he'll get there. Nah, he should have been got there. Right? Like he should have been got there. He should have been had Ochako and Momo and Suyu and Mina and these folks like during the overhaul arc putting in work. He should have had them putting in work throughout. And that's the thing. It's like 252 chapters is not early for that. It's like the thing for me is like I understand where people are coming from by saying like, oh, like usually these manga are much longer, like they're like 500 chapters, 600 chapters, that sort of thing. But it's like he's got to do way more with them. It's like you have that many chapters and you can't put them in the field once, like, and really have them putting in work. You couldn't have the trio. You couldn't have Deku, Todoroki, and Bakugo just chilling somewhere for just for a little bit, just for a little bit. You couldn't do that. I know plenty of people that are like, yo, when is Ochako gonna get that shine? Plenty of people that are like, when is Suyu gonna get that shine? Plenty of folks that are like, when is Momo gonna get that shine? All right? Plenty of folks. Facts, Solace. Big facts. I never forget that she's there because it's like, it's kind of a joke at this point. It's like, what are you doing? And I think Horikoshi like legitimately just forgot that she was like a character and she was like, I don't know what to do. It's just sad. It just saddens me. Right? They only ever show up for the training, but when like when things are going down, it's always the guys that we see doing all this stuff. How is Nejire one of the top 3 students at UA and she hasn't gotten much at all? How is it that the most prominent thing she's done in My Hero is a beauty contest? Are we for real? Now, I'm not gonna lie. He gave Sean the Jito. He did give Sean the Jito. But it's also like, I want to see them in battle. Like, I want to see them in battle. That's what I want to see. All right? Mirio and Sun Eater, yo, dope. Dopest parts of the overhaul arc. Where is Nejire? Where was she? She didn't do much. How is she she's a top 3 student in UA. Top 3. The big 3. Why am I only really seeing the big 2? And it's like, that stuff that's like, it's unacceptable. It's like, it's not something that, like, I don't excuse that. Don't give Horikoshi excuses to run away with, because he'll take them. He'll take them. You know what I mean? Come on. So that's the thing for me. It's like stuff like that is just so egregious and just so absurd that we like. I can't ignore that stuff, and I have to talk about it, right? I gotta talk about it. I gotta speak out on it. And again, when we look at in particular Battle Shonen, right? In particular Battle Shonen, we look at that stuff. We consistently said it. Like we consistently see it. All right. Come on, y'all. It's too much. It's too much. So that's the kind of stuff that I think we have to take more seriously, because the thing is, like, it's not just it's not just guys that are reading these manga. You know what I mean? Whenever I go to cons, like whenever I see My Hero cosplay, Naruto cosplay, Bleach cosplay, Seven Deadly Sins cosplay, all that stuff. The majority of folks that are cosplaying One Piece cosplay, the majority of folks that cosplay maybe not One Piece, but One Piece as well. But like if we put them all together with those manga and anime, the majority of folks that are cosplaying for those manga and anime are women. Like the majority. Whenever I see someone from, especially My Hero. So so don't like you have this particular fan base. Like you have to give the woman, like the woman in and girls in your stories like prominent roles, because like that has an impact, right? Whenever I'm teaching, whenever I hear folks talk about, like whenever I hear some girls talk about which characters they think are interesting and which characters they don't think are interesting, often the girls I've seen like a lot of girls that I've like that I've seen say, "Oh, Todoroki's so cool. Bakugo's interesting. Deku is, he's okay, but he's also kind of cool." It's usually the guys, Tokuyami, like it's usually the guys. Why is that? It's because it's probably because the women that are in the stories don't pop in the way that they should because they aren't featured in the way that they should be. So it's really important that you give your female cast more roles, because oftentimes when um, um, girls or women are reading these stories, it's not to say that they don't see that, but it's like, especially when they're younger, that stuff has an effect, right? Like it has an effect on some. I'm not saying all girls, because there are girls who definitely notice that stuff when they're in like the 5th grade. I had a student like, let's say, like a year, like 2 years ago, something like that. I had a student who was like, yeah, so many stories, man, so many stories, Mr. D. Like they just, I don't know, like they're just not for me. Like I want like, and it's because like the women were just not particularly good. So what happens is some of those students look for they look for more mature like stories and content, because they assume that in those stories women will be taken more seriously and girls will be taken more seriously. So it's stuff like that where it's just like, there's a lot that needs to be done, and I think it's not as complicated it's not complicated so much as it's much more new. I think it's much more nuanced. I think the conversation is more nuanced than I'm necessarily presenting it to be. But I do but that doesn't mean it's complicated. I think that there are things that should be done, but there are a lot of things. There are a lot of things that need to happen, right? There's nuance in that. There are a lot of parts to this. So I feel like a lot has to be done. Um, you know, a lot has to be done, and it's something that does have an effect. Like I think like you see it in students, you see it in just like the fan base, right? You see in the fan base like who are their favorite, who are their favorite characters, who do they gravitate towards. A lot of that, a decent amount of that has to do with who's featured, who's given narrative space, all of that stuff. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of how I feel about it. And again, this is just rambling. So I'm just kind of rambling about this stuff and just like kind of throwing my thoughts out as they sort of come. But I thought a lot about this. I've talked a lot about this, and try not to worry about it. Y'all already know. Like for me, like that doesn't matter. Like I've never asked like I won't say I've never. I think like maybe at the beginning, like when I first started the channel and I had like 0 subscribers, I was like, subscribed. But then once like I got like a few subscribers, I was like, I don't really care. Like I got some people talking. I got some people talking to me, the people that I can talk to. Like I'm chilling. So I don't. None of that matters to me. Like, but thank you, Trent, for the love and for the support. I appreciate that. But I've never like asked for likes or some subs or anything like that, and I don't ever plan to, because I don't think it's super useful. Like for me, right? But yeah. But it's just like, come on. Yeah. Yeah, like I think Pito is so like at least for Hunter x Hunter, I think Pito is very prominent. But I think the thing with Tagashi, like I mean even Tagashi I think could do more. I think even Tagashi could do more with that. You know what I mean? Like I think he had 4 protagonists, but like one of them couldn't be a girl. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think it's stuff like that. It's like same with Yu Yu Hakusho, right? He had 4 protagonists, but not one of them could be a girl or a woman. It's stuff like that I'm like, And the question is why? right? The question is always why. So Tagashi is not exempt. Tagashi is not exempt, not by a long shot. You know, there are things that he can do as well. All right, and I think even he falls into, you know, even him, and I think Tagashi's probably one of the more progressive of the battle shonen manga that are like guys. So, you know, it's like he does, right? He does. All right, and it's not that he doesn't have any dope female characters. I think, but I think the thing is, like, even Tagashi can do more. We can't just be like, oh, because Tagashi is not perfect with how he's treated his cast, in terms of how he's given them sort of like narrative space. You know, he's not perfect. You know, especially earlier on. I think earlier on. So that's kind of how I feel about that. I always want to make sure that we don't sort of just like give like some manga a pass and then others we don't give a pass. Like, it's like even Tagashi could do more. That's not to say that he hasn't done anything. I think he's done a decent amount with certain characters. But for me, if I think like why it's important to me, a few reasons. One, because I think whenever we think about what it means to be ignored or treated as lesser than or othered and those sorts of things, and when we think about the ways in which people are just like more oppressed groups are treated like garbage, like, I think empathy is really important in that, right? So for me, I already know, I know how it feels like for me as a black, bi, pansexual, whatever you want to call it, right? Man, to move throughout this world and for people to like make particular assumptions or to treat me a certain way, or to give me side eyes or like, right, the micro and the macro aggressions. Right, and I understand that. I've done that for a pretty long time, and it sucks, right? Like a lot. And I think that at the very least, empathy is a really important part in that. Because for me, like when I was younger, I wasn't talking about this stuff at all. Like when I was like, you know, 19, 18, 17, even 20, I wasn't really thinking about that in the ways that I needed to. You know, and it wasn't really until like I hit like 21, 22, that sort of thing, where I was like, yo, like, all right, I got to start looking into stuff, because I would see how women were treated and how girls were treated in different spaces, right? To particular degrees. Like, let's say, like when I was working in supermarkets, I would see how cashiers were treated and how the majority of the cashiers were always women, right? And teenage girls, and I was like, y'all can't get some of the dudes to like do some of that cashier work in the area right now. And it's not to say that like I've never seen guys do cashier work, but it's like most of the time women are cashiers. That's just like a microcosm of sort of the ways in which we treat women in other fields, right? And I think that no, that's not how that works. It's and I think like when I say empathy, I just mean like other like human beings. You know what I mean? Like to see how other human beings are treated just because of who they are, and how they're treated horribly just because of who they are. And you have to work, like it's like you don't exist in a vacuum, right? So you have to work to dismantle those systems that that oppress like those groups, and we have to realize that those systems are constructed by human beings, right? Like those systems didn't just poof come out of nowhere and then people like jumped into those systems and then that's what happens. Like no. Like people created those systems and continue to propel those systems and continue to do that. You know, so that's kind of how I feel about that. I think a big thing about it is empathy. And when you don't, then it becomes very difficult to understand why someone would care about a group that they're not necessarily a part of, right? In a sense, or that they or like, right? So that's kind of how I feel about it, at least in a sort of general sense. I think when it comes to the battle shonen, right? When it comes to the battle shonen stuff, like that's just one part of it. So whenever I'm thinking about how female casts are treated in battle shonen manga, that's a part of how I feel about an overall systemic issue, right? So it's not so right. So it's right. So that's kind of how I sort of feel about that. It's like when we think about like for me, like why I think this issue is important. It's not just that I think this issue is important on its own, right? Although I think it is. It's that we always have to remember that when when we're talking about any particular issue that deals with how an oppressed group is being treated, it's always one part of a massive issue, right? Like this is one part of a massive issue, right? It's one part of massive. And again, I'm not saying that things aren't changing, but the thing is, like, it's like this again. This is what Malcolm X said it sort of like very like beautifully, right? Where he was like, if you if you stab me in the back and you take out and it's like if you stab me in the back and you pull out the knife let's say like I can't remember the exact inches, but he was like 3 inches. He's like, that's not progress. He was like, if you pull out the knife 6 inches, that's not progress. He's like he's like, even pulling out the knife isn't progress. He's like, the progress is working to heal that is like working to heal that wound and making sure that it does get healed. And the thing is, like, yes, progress is like being made, but you can't just sit in progress is being made. You can't sit in that, because what happens is a lot of folks would be like, yo, but progress is being made, and then they won't do anything. And I've seen it happen time after time after time after time. I've seen it a lot, right? Folks will be like, yo, it's not that big of a deal. We're working toward things, we're doing all that stuff. It's like, but try telling that, try saying that to the folks who are being wronged, who are being treated like dirt. Try telling those folks, hey, I know, you're suffering, but progress is being made. You won't suffer when you turn 90, even though you're 20 now. You know what I mean? It's just you have to think about it in that sort of sense, right? Yeah, you have to think about it as like, we need this stuff to end yesterday. And the fact that we're making progress is good in of itself, but you can't think about it in of itself. You can't think about that in of itself. You have to think about it as, yeah, we're making progress, but really we should be at a place where this wasn't an issue in the first place. That's where we should be, and we're not, and that's it. That's a problem. That's a problematic that needs to be addressed. So that's why whenever folks are like, "Oh, we got to make progress," we're making progress, it's like, yeah, but you can't stop there. I think we changed the world. I wouldn't say as a community. I wouldn't say like that. Try to think of the word, but I think everybody has to work towards that. And I think there are too many groups of people. And I don't mean by like race, ethnicity, that sort of thing. I just mean like groups of people, just like that have particular thought processes and ideologies and follow particular axioms and dogma and that sort of thing, that hinder that progress, right? So a big, like, one of the probably biggest things that we have to do is we have to make sure that those people either understand that they have to work towards that progress and stop hindering that progress, or we have to make it so that whatever it is that they think and feel about a particular thing that does hinder that progress cannot hinder that progress. We have to get to a place where the folks that are making it hard and are doing that oppressive work can't do that work. You know what I mean? So I think that so that's kind of how I feel about that. I think that like there's always more, and I think it should not be problematic to, or shouldn't be an issue to ask for more progress, right? I do think that it's like that for me, the reason why I think like it's okay for people to like to not focus on that progress is because the people that aren't focused on that progress are working towards more, right? Like they're working towards a very particular end goal, which is the elimination and eradication of oppression, right? In particular things, and obviously it's not gonna be easy. I think a lot of folks do have to understand that it's not gonna be easy. I think that there are things that can be done that would make it a lot easier, but ultimately, I think that like there's a lot more that folks can always do, and I think there's a way in that like folks can come together collectively to get more done. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that like for me, I have no like I know it's gonna take a long time. I know that we're still gonna be dealing with these issues after I'm dead. That I know. But what I hope, right, is that we can somehow we can somehow get to a place where like it's like for me, like my work is like actively being like by the time I leave this world, I will have made it so that I will have made it not just better, but like I will have made it so that oppression is not something that can exist in the spaces that I have been a part of. And I think that's sort of the thing we have to kind of work on. It's hard. It's really it's difficult, right? And it's difficult because like you can't do that alone, right? You have to work with other people. But I think it can be done. That's kind of how I feel about that. Yeah. It's difficult. It's difficult work. But I think, but it's hard, and that's why, like, again, like this conversation is like one part. It's one part of a much larger issue, and I think that's how I'm always thinking about it. Like if you think about it as just, well, this thing is happening over here, and that thing is happening over there, and that thing is happening over there, and they're all discrete, right? Then that's not, I would say don't think about it like that, because it's not helpful. I think what it is helpful is thinking about it as all of these things are happening in these different spaces, but all of these things are related. They're all related, right? So that's why it's like you have organizations that, where like an organization like RAIN, right? Like RAIN is an organization that does like copious amounts of work towards helping and educating people on the pandemic that is like rape, sexual assault, sexual harassment, you know what I mean, amongst other things, right, abuse, right, when it comes to women. So it's like stuff like that, so RAIN is dealing with RAINN, right? So RAIN is dealing with, like, it's not just dealing with one thing, they're dealing with multiple things, right, that to sort of like the naked eye might be sort of like disparate, but really they aren't, right? They're all interconnected. You have to sort of tackle those things. You have to tackle all those things. Otherwise, those oppressive systems will continue to just like keep on churning. All right. Yeah. It's difficult work. But we have to do the work. Got to do the work. So I think, again, like this one thing, I talk about this one thing. Hey, Ifa. That was my cat, Ifa. She doesn't like to be picked up very much, so I'm not gonna lift her. I wish I could show her to you, but maybe. Right? But it's work. All right. No, I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't say what I'm saying is realistic because I think like you have to understand that the progress that progress needs like I think what I would say is that you have to constantly work towards that, and and I wouldn't say that it's not realistic. I think once you sort of believe that a particular sort of like ideal and sort of like let's say like the elimination of oppressive systems isn't sort of like realistic, then you're already done. Right. Then you've already put yourself in a position to like not do the work that you need to do. Right. So I think that like whenever you're dealing with like systemic issues, systemic oppressive systems, you have to have that sort of belief that it's like there's an end in sight. When you don't have that belief that there is an end in sight, when you're just like, these things are always going to be around, that like, oftentimes you will not. Those people that believe that these things will always be around will not work towards ending those things, right? And this is what I've seen. I've seen this consistently. So you have like it's a big part, like intrinsic to working to ending oppressive like systemic systems, right? Like systemic like issues, like is the belief that those things will be eradicated. If you don't believe that, you're gonna have a hard time. You're gonna have a hard time. All right, like those things are not. What's the word I'm looking for? Those things don't work together. Right? Like they clash. There's a clash. It's counterproductive. All right. So that's kind of how I feel about that. And it's not to say that like we can't continue to have conversations about that, but I think that I don't know how useful those conversations are. I think what is more useful is the work. Right? I mean, you work to change systemic issues by working with people, by working with other people, by studying what not only gives those systemic issues, like what gives those like systems, those oppressive systems, the power to continue to like operate, right? But what are legitimate ways to depower those oppressive systems. Like that's work that's being done every single day by groups, by single people, and this is something that like we have like it's not just you like you can't just think about it as like how do we end these systemic issues? It's like what work is already being done to do that? You know what I mean? Like to me, I don't ask that question I don't ask that question. Like I don't ask like how do we take out these systemic issues, because I already see that work being done. So the thing that I sort of move to is like, okay, is this work useful to that end goal, or is it not useful to that end goal? And if it's not, then you have to figure out like what are the issues with that work, and how do we make that work like actually useful? And if it is useful, then how do we strengthen that? So these are the things that like I think sometimes a lot of it is just like mindsets. I think a lot of people are just kind of like sometimes people will just get stuck in, man, these systems are so massive and da da da. And it's like, yeah, that's true. But again, I think like a lot of it depends on like what issues are what oppressive system are you talking about, and what work is being done to dismantle that particular oppressive system, right? So if you think about like systems of like like corporate systems that allow like sexual like harassment and sexual abuse to like sort of like go on. If you think about like oppressive systems in terms of like family dynamics, that sort of thing. If you think about it in terms of like education systems, right? It's like how do we make sure that like what work is being done, let's say like in education sort of systems. So if you think about that, you can think about the fact that there are let's say like if you're like a particular teacher, like you have to have like a certain amount of training in dealing with students who who have been sexually abused or harassed or whatever. But even then, like you wouldn't stop there. You're like, all right, like how do we help those students after the fact, and also how do we make it so that those students don't have to deal with those things in the first place? So it's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff. I think like if you think about like oppressive systems in terms of like patriarchy, then a big sort of like part of that is like that sexual abuse, sexual harassment, rape, like those, like all that stuff. And you have to think, how do you dismantle like patriarchy? How do you get rid of this oppressive system? Because it is an oppressive system, and I think like throughout history we've seen that. So we think like what work is being done there, and there are so many organizations that are working towards that, right? Toward doing that work. So I would say work with those organizations, but also keep those organizations accountable, right? So if those organizations are doing work that might be antithetical to the end goal that they have, right, which is the abolition of patriarchy, then you have to be like, right? Folks got to hold each other accountable. So I think there's just a lot of stuff that we have to think about. And I think do I think that like everyone should be aware of everything all the time? No, because that to me is not realistic. That's not realistic. There's too much. There's too much that exists. But that's not to say that you can't try to be aware of things, right? Just because you probably can't be aware of everything that's happening all the time does not mean that you can't try to be that you shouldn't try to be aware of things, right? It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. And I think a lot of it just starts with like, talking with folks, reading, listening, writing. There's a lot of stuff that you have to do. There's a lot that you have to do. I wouldn't say that the counter to that can't be feminism. What I would say is the counter to that can't be like a particular type of feminism. Like a feminism that isn't like intersectional, like does not work. Like it doesn't work in the way that it needs to. I think that like, can you critique feminism? Of course. Do women critique feminism all the time? Yes. Have there been critiques of feminism throughout feminism theory? Yes. This is the thing, and I think this is the thing that bothers me whenever people sort of bring up, critiques of feminism and why aren't women critiquing feminism and stuff like that. It's like, no, they are. All the time. Right? Like the most prominent voices of like feminist movements critique feminism. Right? Like you have to. Like we would not be at a place where we could even talk about intersectional feminism without the critique of a white feminism. Right? So I think, like, to be clear, I think more people should be aware of what's being written, what sort of discourse has been put out when it comes to when it comes to that. And what I would also say is that I think there are people who are not necessarily even who wouldn't necessarily like call themselves a feminist in a sense, but have used other terms. And I think those are conversations, right? Like womanist, and I think those are terms that have those are conversations that are very useful and that I am paying attention to. So I think like for me, it's like I think I think women that are invested in a feminist sort of like movement and a feminist and like in feminist movements um, often are critical of the movement that they were a part of. And I think what you often see is that on the flip side is that folks that are a part of the patriarchy like that uplift the patriarchy are not critical of the patriarchy, right? They are not critical of it. So this is the sort of thing, and right, this is the sort of thing that we have to sort of be aware of, right? This is the sort of things. These are the sorts of things that we have to be aware of. We can't just be like, oh, women are not critical of feminism, right? Because they are. They are. I see it all the time, like all the time, and the ability for for people to quite literally map out feminist movements and the sort of evolution of feminist discourse is because of that criticism, right? Because women are being critical of each other. I see women being critical of each other so often, like every day. And it's not to say that, and I'm not saying like, oh, women are critical of each other. That's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing because folks should be critical of each other. Like, but I think the end goal of that is to say, if often when women are sort of critical of each other, usually it's, at least when it comes to sort of like feminist discourse, at least from what I've seen, it's always who are the women that we're we're ignoring, and how can we work to not ignore them, and how can we work to help them, how can we work to bring them to the forefront. So I always see that, and that's very much of the crux of intersectional feminism, right? So it's interesting. It's interesting. I think what I will do is at some point I will have like this sort of conversation. But I think what I want to do is I want to make sure that I set it up I set up like a date for it and all that kind of stuff. You know, but I think that like for me it's like what's the yeah like let me see I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say women hate. I would say women generally hate each other. I would say it's more like what I would say is I don't know if that focus is useful because I think that there are men that like groups do this all the time. It's not like women are like the only group that like you know come at each other in certain ways or are critical of another. Men do this all the time, right? Right when it comes to like ethnicity, race, class, all that sort of thing. Folks do that all the time. So I don't know how useful excuse me. I don't know how useful a focus on that is. I think we have to be really clear about what are the conversations that women are having. And how can men be useful to that, like to sort of like the growth of those conversations and bringing those conversations to the forefront, you know. And I don't know, I have a lot of stuff to say on that. There's a lot. There were so many books that I could like suggest, but I think what I would do is I probably just like go to like talk with women that have already like put together lists, and I would just share their list because their lists are pretty dope and great. Um, no, I think when you say men seek to just want to be on top, in of itself, that like men want to destroy each other. You know what I mean? Like they want to destroy each other. Like I don't know. I don't know. Nah. I don't know. I don't know about that. I think like I've seen that all the time. It's like, nah. You know what I mean? Men work to uh attack each other all the time and to like, one up each other all the time. I've seen that. I've seen that consistently. And it presents itself in different ways. But yeah, yeah, yeah. I think when we talk about like women like hate each other or they attack each other or whatever, it's like again we have to be clear about what are the conversations that women are having. What are they talking about? Like what are they disagreeing about? And I think that's where it gets like that's where we have to focus on. Like it's very easy to be like, oh, men should be eradicated from this earth. Like, I mean, that's like to me like that's like a ridiculous statement. I don't know how like useful that is or helpful that is. But I understand where that sentiment comes from. Just looking at the history of like this world and countries and communities, I get where that sentiment comes from. But I mean, like, is it like a useful like thing to happen? No, I don't think so. Yeah. Okay. You know, that's sort of the thing. That's sort of the thing. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, that's what I would say about that. I think we just have to look deeper. I think you have to look deeper. And one thing I will also say is one thing that I notice, and this is really key. And I want to at some point I want to do like a video like where I have this discussion with other folks. I'm proud like whenever the next Grove is gonna happen with on Brago channel, I'm gonna be on that. So hopefully, be, getting on the Grove will be hopeful, and I hope the discussion is good, and like that's what I'm hoping. All right, but you know, I think it depends. It's oh, this is what I want to say. I think that like one thing that bugs me is before I end this is gonna be really long, but I thought that was gonna be way shorter than it is. But one thing that bugs me is that when we talk about, one thing that people sort of come into whenever they sort of critique feminism, and again, you could like everything can be critiqued, and when we say critique, we mean like studied, thought about, um, re re-examined, all those types of things. I think the critique that I often see that kind of bugs me is when folks are like, "Oh, but you know, how are feminist movements, working to help men?" And it's like, like, and to me, like, there are just so many different ways in which that's happening. Whenever women are sort of talking about, what they need from men, at the same time they're saying, how can men be better people? Do you know? You feel me? It's like a big part of feminist discourse is this idea of like toxic, sort of like toxic, of like a distinct toxic masculinity, and in that is talking about how men can be more like better in terms of like their emotional health, in terms of the way they treat one another, in terms of the way that they treat women, in terms of just like having like a more like just like a general like healthier sort of like life. So that like I think it's nuanced, and I think we have to sort of dig deeper to like showcase that. Like, I'm saying this now, but I know that people are gonna be like, I don't know about that. But I promise you, like, when we look at all those different things and when we look about what's being discussed, I think that's a thing, right? Like, that's a big part of it. It makes no, like, to me, it makes no sense to me to sort of say that feminism like sort of like ignores the issues of men, because a large part of the reason why why women are dealing with the issues that they're dealing with is because men are dealing with their own issues. You know what I mean? So it's so that's why, to me, I'm like, I don't really get why when people are like, oh, feminism is like trash, or whatever, for that reason. I'm not saying that feminism can't be critiqued, right? I'm just saying that, like, men are a massive part of a discussion of feminist, like, theory and criticism. So yeah. And I think that another thing that's very interesting to me, very, 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 very interesting to me, is that oftentimes the men who consider themselves to be men's rights activists and are complaining about what feminist organizations are doing to help women, right, aren't doing nearly the same type of work that those organizations are doing, right? From like an organizational standpoint, right? A lot of these guys are like, hey, this is an issue that we need to deal with, and it's like, and I think there are certain issues where it's like, yes, like there is like a legitimate like a pandemic of sexual abuse when it comes to boys, right? Of course. All right, I believe that. Okay, but like, right? But it's like, what sort of organizations are you setting up to deal with that? To deal with that issue, right? What are you doing, right? Because from what I see, women are actively, consistently setting up organizations to deal with the issues that they are dealing with, right? But guys, I mean, I have to look into it. I don't know. I'm just saying this like sort of off the top of my head. I'm not sure, but from what I see consistently, most of those guys do not ever mention like organizations that have been set up to deal with that. Right, like on their end, right? But I know all these organizations like that deal with like sexual abuse, harassment, all those things are in agreement that yes, like this is a pandemic, like the sexual abuse of boys is a pandemic, like particularly in the Catholic Church, in patriarchal familial setups. You know what I mean? So it's like, dudes got to set up organizations. You can't just be like, oh, those organizations aren't doing anything. No, they're doing a lot. But if you want certain issues to be dealt with, then you have to put in the same kind of work that those women are putting in. You got to set up those organizations. You got to talk to folks, right? Like, and you can't have that organization be something that is wholly against feminist organizations on like over there that are doing their important work. It's like, if you have an issue with the fact that let's say like sexual abuse of boys is of the pandemic of the sexual abuse of boys and men, and you also have an issue with like the disproportionate number of people that are put in death row. To me, like the whole prison thing, I'm like, I don't even like prisons, right? So that's an issue. So for me, I'm just like, yo, get them in prisons, right? But when it comes to the other thing with the sexual abuse, like, you got to set up organizations, and you shouldn't be concerned about attacking an organization over there that's dealing with the sexual abuse of, I think, people in general, honestly, but in particular women, right? For valid reasons, you know. It's a lot. It's a lot. But I think a lot of those guys need to just, like, you know, do the work, set up the organizations, you know, and stop, you know, coming at the folk, you know, the women over here, over there, that are doing the work that they need to do, and, you know, get up off your butt and, like, get the work started, you know. All right. Um. Yeah. So that's kind of how I feel about that. That's kind of how I feel about that. I have a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot to say. And again, this is just ramblings. All right. I'm not sure why, but I can't. Let me see. The chat isn't, like, activating. I also have to, like, stop streaming because I have work soon. Like, I have work soon, so I gotta get to it. You know, but that's how I feel about it, y'all. Because I can't see your, like, responses to chat. It's saying unable to connect to chat. I don't know what that's about. It's weird. I'm not sure why. Sorry. Okay. Sure. I mean, if you could, if you can send me a DM, that's fine. That's not a big deal. No, yeah, it's like I agree. I think the growth should be more diverse. I agree. To me, it's like, I think there are a few things, like, when it comes to, like, prison abolition. I think one thing is, um, I think that prisons should be abolished. But what I will say is that you can't just say prisons need to be abolished and then, like, get rid of the prisons. That's not smart. That's not gonna work out, right? Because you have folks who legitimately, like, need to be, like, sanctioned off from the majority of the population, and whatever, like, you know, help you can give them while they're being, like, like separated, like, from the majority of the population, like, okay. But I think prison reform, I think prison reform is important, but I also think that, like, too many things, like, that need to be reformed in terms of prison reform are, like, integral to the maintenance of the prison, industrial complex. Like they just, it is, like, to me, I believe that, like, no matter how much you reform prisons, if they're still prisons, we're gonna have an issue. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's why, like, whenever folks talk about prison abolition, they're always talking about, like, different like, um places need to be, like, different, like, sort of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, um but different things need to be put in place, right? Not like that are not prisons, right? We're not saying, like, okay, eliminate prisons and then don't do anything, right? I think, like, that's not what prisons are, like, that's not what prison abolition is about, right? It's not like, okay, let's get rid of prisons and that's it, right? It's like, let's get rid of prisons, but also put something in its place that is useful, that doesn't, like, breed, um you know, absurd rates of sexual abuse, violence, emotional, distress, uh declining health, that doesn't uplift, capitalism. You know what I mean? Like, and in particular, carceral capitalism. Like, this is the type of stuff that is really, 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 and carceral capitalism is a term, I want to say, that was coined by, Jackie Wang, who is a brilliant, brilliant, I want to say, PhD student at Harvard, I believe, for political science. But Really good stuff. It's a book called Carceral Capitalism. Definitely check it out. But you know what I mean? It's like there's just a lot. There's just like a lot of things that I think just need to be abolished, but things need to be put in their place. Like you can't just like get rid of prisons and then that's it. That doesn't work. Like that's like an absurd like idea, right? Like anybody that's like, yo, let's just get rid of the prisons. That's not gonna work, yo. that's not it. I don't believe in that. Because there are individuals that just simply cannot be allowed to walk like among the general population. They can't, and they've proven that to be the case because they've like killed, literally dozens upon dozens of women, men, children. Folks. So no, but yeah. It's just different. I think like that, and I think a lot of ways like when people talk about prison abolition, they're like the elimination of like that prison industrial complex. I think a lot of folks are talking about that when we talk about prison abolition. So it's more complicated than it sort of seems. But I think that folks are also very much aware that like we have to like I think like you do have to reform things before you can just be like, all right, let's get rid of the prisons like entirely, right? Like you have to make certain changes and make before you could just like say, okay, we're moving away from this thing and then we're gonna put this thing in its place. We have to have an idea of like what should be put in its place, right before anything truly sort of happens. Yeah. All right. I gotta get out of here because it is 1:21. I gotta work very soon. I was not intending to stream this long, but it happened, and that's fine. It is what it is. All right. But thank y'all for coming through. I think like this conversation was good. I definitely need to. One thing I want to do with like Twitter is like put out more like suggestions in terms of like what should you be looking at, what should you be checking out, and I'm not saying like just roll along with like all the stuff that I suggest or anything like that. Engage with it, wrestle with it, but at the very least check it out. Like it's like if I suggest like a book, try to check it out. Try to see see what you think about what's being asserted, and if it's a video or an organization or that sort of thing, see what you think. Obviously, and like obviously like you get to be critical. But I think we just need to do. I think as just like as a community, like and as people, like we need to do more, and we can always do more. Yeah. Okay, I gotta get out of here, y'all. I gotta get out of here because I am late. Yeah, I just need to. Yeah. Sorry, Naya. I gotta go, Naya. I gotta work soon. I gotta do a bunch of things. Yeah, I think like you gotta be curious. You gotta keep reading. You gotta keep viewing. Gotta keep listening. Be critical of things. No. You should like get to a place where you feel like you have a good idea of like what you should be critical of and what is actively working. But I said this, and not Naya. I said it. I like one thing I said, Naya, when I came to the shonen stuff was like I was like, yo, like Tagashi is not immune from a discussion, like from this discussion. It's like even Tagashi could do more. It's like you have 4 protagonists, all of them are dudes. Like it's like, you know what I mean? Like, and for 2 stories, that's the kind of stuff. It's like, okay. That's the kind of stuff that I think, like, it's like, I mean, it's like, look at Gintama, right? Gintama, like, had, I think, what was it, like, 3 protagonists or 2 protagonists, and, like, one of them, I think her name is Kagura, I think is her name, or something like that, and, like, people love her, right? And it's like, that's an example of, like, an instance where you can have, multiple protagonists, and you know, some of them could be girls or women or whatever, non-binary, genderqueer, whatever, folks, you know, and you could have that, and it'd be cool, and that's the thing. I think like we always had to push. No one manga is like immune to, um, especially when it comes to like right, it's like isn't necessarily like immune to those kinds of critiques. Um, so I think like it's like I love Hunter x Hunter, I love Tagashi, like his work, but come on, no, I agree, I agree. I think like that's something I'm gonna talk to about. Like I'm gonna talk with Brago with Brago about if he's like if he's up for it. I think he is. Brago I think is he's pretty good about like listening and all that and that kind of stuff. So I'll definitely talk about him with it. But I definitely want to have like a conversation. Like I want to set this up. Like I want to have like I want to have like I want to get back to like having women on the channel because now I can like do the conversations again because I figured out how to do Hangouts and OBS at the same time. So I'm gonna bring that back. So look out for that. All right, let me get out of here, y'all. Thank y'all for coming through to this. I said a lot. I rambled a lot. Expect more ramblings. Okay. They'll be about different things, but usually they'll be pretty connected. Cause y'all know what I talk about for the most part on Twitter, on YouTube. So look out for that. Look out for that. All right. Live reactions to things will be out sooner rather than later. And yeah, expect a bunch of reactions this weekend. All right. Thank y'all for coming through. I'm the Black Manga Critic, and I am